We're live. Woo! Hello, 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 friends. I have some amazing women here with me today. I'm so excited to introduce you to my friend Amy Schultz and my friend Dora Rankin. And ladies, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourselves? We'll start alphabetically. Amy.
Go first. Hello, everyone. I am Amy Schultz. I'm co-founder and head coach at Boulder Money. We are a company on a mission to close the gender wealth gap. So I'm super excited to talk to you about all things women and money today.
Hi, Amy, and I'm Dora Rankin, founder of Gypsy Soul Coaching and the Women Making Money Collective Facebook group. And I empower women to live their purpose and create a ton of money while doing so.
Yay. And I'm Sandra. And I am all about empowering women with leadership and the challenges that we face as women leaders. And Amy, I remember you and I, when we first met, we were attending a messaging, like how to figure out your message and who you want to talk to. And I remember we sat there for like 3 months and I knew exactly what you were doing. And we talked about it all the time. And then you gave a presentation and I'm like, oh my gosh, I need to talk to Amy.
Yeah, it's so funny. It's like people, well, and with money, there's so many different areas that can be helping. Everyone's always like, oh, so you're a financial advisor. Oh, like, do you deal with life insurance? I'm like, no, no, and no. None of that. So yeah, I remember that was so funny after I gave that presentation. And then you were like, I think this is the thing I need help with.
Yeah. So tell us about what you do with the finance piece.
Yeah. So what we do, we call it money coaching for a specific reason, because there's financial advising and there's financial coaching or financial planning. Financial advising is very much just managing investments. So wealth that already exists, where do we put this wealth so that it grows? Financial planning can be looking at, how do you want to save for 10 years down the road? What do you need to be doing so that you can buy a home or retire, any of those things? And then financial coaching is a very practical personal finance piece of budgeting. These are like the 10 steps that you should be doing so that you can make the most of your retirement benefit, anything that's very practical. Money coaching has to take into consideration the mindset piece. And so what we found with the research that we've done with Boulder, just with our experience working with different clients, is that yes, there's the practical, and that action is so important to take those practical steps, but you can't really get there without looking at where the person is starting from. So what did they learn about money? What are the things about money that are impacting their choices they may not even be aware of? For example, somebody who wants to start a business but just doesn't really get it off the ground because they don't truly believe that they can support themselves, or that they are able and maybe deserving to be doing that. So we have to look at what are the deep-rooted financial beliefs, how are those playing out into your spending, into the way that you incur credit card debt, into the way that you build savings or don't build savings. And so money coaching takes all of that into perspective. It starts with the human first and says, like, I see you, I know why you're doing these things. We're going to get to the root of the problem, and we're going to give you practical steps so that you can build the wealth that you want and ultimately live the life that you want.
I remember one of the lines you said to me that really kind of hit home for me was, money doesn't grow on trees. I'm like, yeah, like, of course it doesn't, but it does. It's made of paper, and paper is trees, and it's made of cotton, and cotton is like, a plant. So yes, money does grow on trees.
I love that. And how much, but like we don't even have cash anymore, which is so funny.
I know.
It's like so much about money, and Dora and I were talking about this earlier. It has to come back to like, what do you believe in yourself? Like, do you believe that you can create money for yourself, that you can go out and earn money? That's one of the things we see a lot with aspiring entrepreneurs, I guess, is like, do you believe that you can earn, your own income, that you can do that for yourself? There's so many little the little sayings and things about money that we don't realize, like, those are from our parents. Those are from the people that we saw managing money early on in our lives. And they may follow us along and not necessarily be serving us anymore.
Yeah. And Dora, as a coach who helps women entrepreneurs, how do you see this manifesting?
Yeah. So I think manifestation is in our soul, right? So that's in our soul, but manifesting in our soul isn't really going to create anything in your bank account or in your pocketbook. So the thing is, we all have a money story, and we all have a relationship with money, and it stems from we're a product of our environment.
Mm-hmm.
So and then that's not good, bad, or indifferent. That's just is what it is. So that's the benchmark. We have to uncover what's our money story and what is our relationship with money based on what we've experienced through our life, so we can benchmark that. And then we go from, well, this is what I really want. I really want to make this much money. I really want to not rely on someone else to pay the bills. I want to be able to make the decision and not ask my husband permission. Those are the things that I want, but I have this money story, and I have this relationship with money that has been rooted and consistent all of these years. How do I change that? What do I need to do to change that? And in order to change that, that's why you have us. That's why you have coaches that can share our own experiences and our backgrounds to give you the ability to change that narrative. So, like, my story, even though I was self-sufficient and grew up with a feminist and was always the breadwinner and never had to ask permission to make decisions with money, I still had money scarcity. I still had it. And that's because all of those years I did have to do it all. Like, it was all on my shoulders, right? So I still had to unlearn some of the things that I did, growing up, so I could get to this goal, this income goal that I wanted to be at. And most of that was changing how I literally felt about my own empowerment. How I felt about my own empowerment. Could I really bring what I wanted to bring to women? Would women really need what I was able to offer? And that's, once again, that's the money mindset story that we're telling ourselves. So growing a business or meeting those income goals, what we really want, can all be found through our head.
Yeah. One of the things that I noticed, and I'm going to jump back to Amy, because I noticed that when I was working full time, I didn't think I had a money scarcity mindset, right? I felt like I was getting paid. I felt like
Yeah.
I had negotiated my salary well. I felt like the income that I was earning was commensurate with my experience. And so when you and I spoke, those 3 months that we were in class together, I was like, yeah, no, 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 no. And then when you gave your presentation, I realized that it wasn't so much that that I wasn't willing to stand up and ask for what I wanted to get paid. It's that I was also afraid of earning what I was worth as an entrepreneur, because I had some poor mindset as it relates to wealthy individuals.
Mm-hmm.
And so while I was comfortable with a certain amount of income, I wasn't willing to go past that, because I was holding myself back, because I realized, oh, no, rich people are like, they're bad, they're crooks. And, and so I didn't realize that those were coming up for me.
Yeah, that's really interesting. I'm sure, Dora, I feel like working specifically with female entrepreneurs, you must see that come up a lot in terms of the mindset. On the other hand, on the other side of that, something we see too, which is similar, is like, well, who am I to like create this service or product and charge for it, like it's so much easier to go or it can be, I guess, easier to go to a company and like have them pay you a certain amount and like they're deciding that than to decide it for yourself. Like this, it's very personal. It becomes much more emotional almost. And so that's something we see a lot too. But there's so many different ways that scarcity can show up. There's so many different ways that like we can get in our own way about what we're doing with money. And so it's really important to be able to put it into like a statement of like, I believe this about money and how it relates to me because of something, my upbringing, or because of something that I saw when I was younger. And so I know for me specifically, mine was like, I believe that money is to be spent. I believe that money goes away. I don't believe that money is to be held on to because of what I saw growing up. And so that's something I had to work through. And I still, in like little moments, you know, every moment counts for me. Like I have to think through, am I doing this because of my tendency to put money, to get rid of money? Or is this really what I want to be doing right now? I still have to challenge myself and like almost play that little game of like, hey, is this what you really want to be doing, self, or are you getting in your own way? And so I think just being able to identify that, Sandra, like you just did, is so helpful.
Mhm.
Yeah, Dora, I can see you like, I wouldn't say it.
Well, I think about there's a difference in power for title and power for impact and power for your own worth, right? So climbing the corporate ladder to get the title, yeah, the paycheck was great, but what are the prices I had to pay?
Yeah.
And the impact wasn't my impact. It was impact that wasn't solving the economic power issue that we have that's so relevant in women. And so the more women that can step out of the title and start looking at how they can really impact other women
Mm-hmm.
with their own zones of genius, that's where we're going to see the change in the overall worth, what we're worth. And so when we, not saying that staying at the corporate job is bad, if you're finding joy there and it works for you, great. But if it's grind and it's just title and there's this fear of like, well, it brings me a sense of security, you have an option. You have an option to not stay in that situation. And I was that person and was terrified to leave that situation. And here I am. You know, here, right? We go through that. Here I am because I want to make an impact, and I know my worth. And the way to get there is to say it's not about the title anymore. It's not about this title. I am secure in my own self, right? So, and a lot of that came, like, it exploded during COVID, that women said, wait a minute, I can do this. I can do this on my own. I have so much talent that I can do this and I can take care of my kids and I don't have to work for you and you don't have to tell me what to do anymore
Yeah.
for the title.
So I think it's interesting. I want to hit on a couple of things that you said. I think it's interesting that we always talk about security, that there's more security in a full-time job, right? Because I know I went there, right? I was there, but we don't have any security because we can be fired anytime, right? So we really don't have security in a full-time job. And like Amy said, they define what our worth is financially, right? And we don't have a lot of choices about it, right? I mean, we could go and look for another job. We could start a side hustle or something totally different, right? But yeah, like for the most part, we don't have a lot of leeway to earn whatever we want. And I think it's interesting, the other comment that you made, Dora, about, and I'm curious about Amy's perspective, this whole idea of owning our, like, putting money towards our passions and to serve in the ways that we want to serve, as opposed to just going to work. Does that
Yeah,
make sense?
I love that. To me, it's like impact. Like, what is the impact that you're making? I believe that as I say women and all of this, but to me, it comes down to like compassionate people. As more compassionate people have more money and feel like they can make choices that put them in places of authority and places of leadership and aren't necessarily waiting for somebody else to give them that, those people continue to make choices from that place and the world becomes better. And so I think, we see this all the time with purpose-driven business owners who start businesses that serve other people. That takes a lot. It can feel like such a big risk unless you have that feeling of like, I'm going to go out and do this because this is the thing that's meant to do. And a lot of times what we see is that people who start, whether they're starting a purpose-driven business or whether it's just that they have enough wealth built up, that they aren't scared to go into their boss's office and be like, hey, I saw this employee treated this way, it wasn't right. I think we need to start a women's organization because we need to work on these things and blah, blah, blah. And like, I want to take the lead on this and whatever it is. When you have that security that you've created for yourself in the form of more wealth built up, it becomes so much easier to use your voice to speak for impact. It doesn't necessarily have to mean that you have a business idea. It doesn't mean that you're like, starting a tech startup. That's really hard, but it does mean that you will feel more comfortable speaking up when you see things that are wrong. And so this is why, like, we talk all the time about the gender pay gap and that we need women to have more, they make 82 cents on the dollar to every man earns. So we need to fix that. We need to use our voices. We need to speak up about that, see that, and make change. But the wealth gap, what women own, like net worth compared to men, it's 32 cents, 32 cents to the dollar. And so if you're at a company and you're only making, let's say $60,000, which is like an amazing salary. I don't mean to say like only making, but just we tend to think of like everybody has to meet that 100K mark. And you think, I don't know how I can make an impact. It's just me. If you focus your spending, if you focus your money on building up a savings account, and you expand your network so that you feel comfortable that if you were to lose your job, you could have another job that you would be able to look for and apply for or whatever, you're going to feel more comfortable advocating for the single mom who works with you and can't work past 4:30 p.m. because she has to get her kids from daycare, and yet everybody's saying that she's not, holding up her end or whatever because she's leaving early. You're going to feel more comfortable advocating for that person. So that's an example of, you don't have to start your own business, but you do have to have the funds available so that you feel comfortable. You just feel more confident. And like, I'm a person who I can go out and say whatever I want because I have the savings to do so, to back me up, that if it ends up wrong, if the worst thing that's going to happen happens, I'm going to be okay.
That's
Obviously,
so powerful.
yeah, obviously I get really passionate about this and could talk about it all day.
I 100% agree with what you're saying, that when we are scared because we don't have a lot of options,
Mm-hmm.
that creates a really limited response that we can make in situations.
Yeah.
Viktor Frankl always, or maybe it wasn't Viktor Frankl, maybe it was Stephen Covey, but they always talk about responsibility as not responsibility as in ownership, but the ability to choose a response, right? So that separation of the response is, and I have an ability to respond, right? And the narrower our options are, the less ability we have to respond. So it's always great to have a big safety net, right? Whether it's financial, whether it's a network, whether it's family in some cases, so that you have those things to fall back on when you see something that needs to be challenged.
Yeah.
Dora, you were going
So
to say something.
when you talk about that, Sandra, I am like soapbox fever is happening. Like I got him up on my box. And so the story that I like to share when it's brought up of narrowing options and safety nets are the story I like to tell is when I was 25 years old, divorced with 2 kids, a 2-year-old and a 4-year-old, needing to figure out what to do with my life at 25. Was working at the bank and I was sitting in an office and I was being offered a promotion. And I went home and I said, oh my gosh, if I get this promotion at 25 years old, I'm going to be kicked off of government assistance. I'm not going to get childcare assistance anymore. And I'm going to be working and I'm not going to be able to afford my bills. So I was like, I'm going to have to say no to this promotion because I need to make 3 times the amount I am making in a promotion than I would of like staying on this help, right? And so at that moment, I made the decision to take the promotion. And now because of that, like what Amy said about that compassion and about purpose, when I run across a woman that's 25 years old, single, that has 2 kids and is trying to decide whether or not to take the promotion or stay on government assistance, the option is always, you have to go for that promotion. You have to go for yourself. You've got to move yourself. So that knowing that I took that promotion and I had no money and I had no assistance and we ate ramen and macaroni and cheese. But guess what? Within 3 years, I was making 3 times the amount of money because I said to myself, this is my option. This is what I get to do. I can do this. I don't have to sit back and have somebody take care of me or have the government take care of me. I can go and I can take care of my kids myself, right? So all those women that are 25 saying, gosh, I need to rely on this assistance. I can't take this promotion. Yes, you can. You can take the promotion. And within 3 years, you can be making 3 times the amount that you were making before.
So as we talk about that, and we haven't talked about this, Amy, you post a lot about my next topic, and that is that to some extent, we can do those things because we are we're not a visible minority.
Mm-hmm.
And the impact that has, not just on women, but like there's the impact of you're a woman versus a man, but then you're a woman of color, right? Or you're a transgendered woman, or you're a queer woman. All of those things come into the picture as well, right? And limit. I don't know if you want to talk about that.
Yeah, absolutely. It's about like that unconscious bias for sure. And so the more women that, and again, compassionate people who they move up in a company and they're aware of that and they're looking around and saying, okay, I might be okay right now, but what are the people who don't look like me doing? What are they okay? Is everybody looking, so who's looking out for them? Right. And if not, that person gets to me too. Or starting a business and you don't have to serve everybody. It's true that like the more your business niches down, the more impactful you can be on that specific group of people. But looking at if business were different, if every, again, small moments that you can take a chance to say, people who don't look like me, someone who hasn't been raised in the same situation that I was raised in, somebody who might be experiencing something completely differently from what I'm experiencing. And again, it's about, that's, I think what we're talking about is recognizing privilege. I think that's a huge part of what we're doing. And to be honest, we're seeing that a lot right now with the student loan relief. I'm seeing
Yes.
so many comments from people. I actually took down a video that I made today because it was like every 2 minutes, it was like a comment from just like a hateful person who had paid off their student loans and was mad that somebody else was getting a handout on their loans. And I was like, what you're unable to do in that moment is look at that person did not have the same privilege that I had. That person did not have the same experience that I had. And so the more people who are starting businesses, again, who are becoming more authority figures, who can look at things from that lens of like, okay, but what about everybody else? The better things become, because it is different. My experience is vastly different from a woman of color, and we have to be aware of that in every moment, because I think we failed to be aware of that for far too long, if we're being honest, which we are.
I'm so conscious of the time because I know you both
Oh my
have
God,
to
yeah, that went by fast.
both have to run, but I would love to continue this conversation. Oh my gosh, it's such a big topic. And so I'm going to let you guys know that we're going to be reading this book as a group in October, and we're going to have a series of conversations. I would love for both of you to be a part of that. I know, Dora, you're part of Rachel's Millionaire Club, her online coaching program. And I love this book. And not only is she like totally hysterical, but she really makes a huge case for why we all have to stand up and earn our top dollar, right? We have an obligation to ourselves and to the causes that we support, and nothing's going to change until we do that. And one of the things that she talks about is systemically how women have been held back. And, like it's been 50 years only 50 years that we didn't need a man's approval to own a bank account. Like that's crazy.
Right.
That's crazy. Talk about soapbox. I'm about to get on it.
No.
So you guys have something coming up this week. So I was wondering if you might share it for anybody who wants to join us.
Yeah, all three of us are going to be in person this week. Yeah, so on Thursday, this Thursday the 15th, I'm hosting a full day retreat all on empowerment for women. So interactive workshops, lunch, wine, shopping. And so if you're local in Cleveland, it will be held at the Cleveland Urban Winery, Destiny's Winery, and tickets are still available. So, yeah.
And I'll be there. I'll be speaking about economic empowerment. The way I do workshops is like you don't leave without something that you go take action on. So if you're like, first of all, what is economic power? Second of all, how do I get more of it in my life? Like be there on Thursday, because myself and the other speakers, like we're going to make sure that that's something that you're going to be able to get for yourself.
Yeah.
I love you guys.
Love you.
Thank you so much for joining me. We got to make women like big economic leaders.
Thanks again, Sandra. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.